Hello, my friends. It's Laura Victoria Ward, and I am here to give you a little micro movement for hydration of fascia moment. So I did this online live, Zoom live with Gil Headley yesterday, and he was talking about the IT band and how it stretches and doesn't stretch, which it doesn't stretch laterally, but it can stretch a little bit along the horizontal. And also like how three-dimensional our body is. Like the layers of our body are made to do different things, and it's all one thing. It's not a separation, like we aren't this layer and that layer. One layer moves into the next layer, into the next layer. It's all one body, one living system of aliveness. So one of the things that came up was how do we hydrate the fascia? How do we hydrate the tissue? Is it just drinking water? And the answer is no. We hydrate through movement, and we hydrate through really three-dimensional movement. So here's sort of like, if I was talking in Laban terms, one-dimensional movement, I'm going one way, up, down, that's one way, sideways, sideways, forward, backward, vertical, horizontal, sagittal. But I can also move in the cube, or like a more three-dimensional movement where I'm moving forward, up, and to the side, 3 dimensions. So this is in Laban terms of Laban movement analysis. Obviously, we are three-dimensional bodies. Any movement we do is three-dimensional, but there are ways to be more three-dimensional than others. So spiraling, very three-dimensional movement. And when I'm spiraling, the tissue in my body is required to do different things than if I'm just moving in a sort of more linear manner. So like a lot of our biomechanical ideas about movement that are based off of machines are not the best models for thinking about how we actually move and what's going on in a live living tissue. So in the interest of hydrating tissue, we want to add spirals. We want to have interiority that has aliveness. So the systems that I've studied that have helped me kind of become more aware of this are: one, connective tissue therapy, Binda massage, which I studied right after I studied Laban movement analysis in the 90s, and also continuum. So Emily Conrad's continuum, it's very great for hydration. I also studied a lot with Liz Koch, who has done the whole SOAS stuff, and she also came from the lineage of Emily Conrad, and art and thinking, conceptualizing how things are. So in micro movement in our bodies, we can just think of our breath growing and shrinking, very Laban idea, sort of the underlying idea of shape flow in our body, and that's how our body is finding its own core support. And that's not rigid core support like we might think about in Pilates, but the support of the breath, the support of the blood flow, the support of the lymphatic flow, these things moving through our bodies, that help support us being alive. So with micro movement, I'm actually going to sit up a little higher. There we go. With micro movement, and you could do this laying down, you could do it seated, you could do it standing, you can really do it in any position. Quadruped is a great way to do it too. But micro movement can just be small little movements where we're focusing on differentiating in different ways. So instead of, okay, I'm just going forward, backward, like I'm doing a cat-cow, I'm arching and curling, maybe I'm gonna throw a little side into my arch and curl. Maybe I'm gonna slow it down a little bit. There are many ways to change the way that we're moving. There are many ways to engage with diversity. So when we find diversity in our tissue, it allows us more access to sort of to deal with the diversity in life, right? Rigid systems help us stay stable and rigid, not the most excellent for creating change or being okay with creativity or things arising. So ways to connect to that with micro movement is just like, I'm just going to do a few little moves here. I can sort of sway, I can figure 8, I can move forward, backward, I can lengthen, I can shorten, I can widen, I can narrow, I can bulge, I can hollow, or I can go rogue and go in any of those directions, just letting the inner body spiral and mobilize, moving around in different ways. And when I do that, I'm bringing my awareness into my body. So we could talk about this as being very mindful, awareness-based. If I feel into how I'm moving and start to follow my movement without imposing upon it, without saying, okay, I'm going to move like this, I'm going to move like that. But if I start to shift my perspective of my own embodiment to being a participatory process and begin to listen to my body. So I'm listening like, where does this want to go? What might feel good? And you can see and hear that I'm slowing down. And I'm coming into myself. Giving myself permission to move in any way that feels good, in any way that's of interest. So in our organs, most of them are almost like balloons, like wet balloons, the way that they interrelate. They don't have this sort of filmy fibrous fascia holding them together the way that our sort of skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia holds us together. So when we hydrate the fascia in our bodies, that three-dimensional movement is really helpful in building resilience in the tissue, which means our fascia, our connective tissue, which is sort of the same thing, but bone is connective tissue. And bone is also wet. Inside of our bodies, we are these systems of water with different levels of density. But our organs they don't kind of melt into each other in the same way. There's liquid between them. And if we don't move very much, they can get more stuck. So the movement is the hydration factor. We can move, and you can see that I'm adding these little twisty spiral movements, and I'm kind of in this continual flow of movement, which is micro movement and always available. Like I could be standing in line, doing micro movement, bringing my awareness in, toning that muscle of awareness, toning that muscle of being in my living body, with my living body, in the dynamic process of being alive. I could do it at the dinner table, right? I could do it laying in bed. I can do it laying in bed next to my partner, and he doesn't know I'm doing it. Like now I'm doing it bigger so that you can see it, but I could be doing it much smaller so that it isn't obvious. Like if I'm in my bed, sometimes I wake up and my lower back is hurting, and I'm like, okay, I just need to do some micro movement through my spine to sort of enliven the tissue and let things redistribute. So hydrating tissue is redistributing the fluid in your body, and the different types of types of fascia, like the really bandy stuff, like our IT band or our Achilles tendon. Those tendons and ligaments are not quite as hydrated as like the filmy fascia. Gil Hedley's calling it perifascia, and that is the fascia connecting to fascia. So when we add small movements, twisting, even like rolling across stuff, we are working to hydrate that perifascia, which is in turn hydrating slightly the deeper fascia or the more bandy fascia. And this is all the stuff that holds us together. So it might be like the feeling of being tight might be we are actually just not very hydrated in our tissue, and we can use some movement, some spiraling, some micro movement to hydrate, to enliven. Of course, we do need to drink water so that things are moving through us, but it's the hydrating tissue isn't about just drinking more water. It's about moving in diverse ways so that as, like if you take a sponge or a towel and you wring it out, then you put it in water, it will fill back up with water. If I put a dry sponge in the water and I don't squish it around a little bit, it'll take a while for the water to seep in. But if I squish the sponge around, water is going to go in much faster. We've created the negative space to open back up. And that's what's happening in your body. And so like doing the same sort of repetitive motions like of a regular fitness routine might be great for building strength or building stamina, but finding diverse movement where we're in a more, I want to say free-flowing, but I really mean more three-dimensional. And what do I mean? Finding that micro-movement support, that underlying support. So I was talking about my back and how if I wake up in the morning and my lower back's hurting, if I spend 20 minutes in there just with small micro-movements, shifting, mobilizing, redistributing, I'll be able to get out of bed without any pain in my back. Now, I am not a doctor, but I do play one on TV. Just joking. I'm not a doctor. This is stuff that works for me, and I have been a lifelong mover of many diverse ways of moving and find movement to be so fascinating. So when I can find more freedom in my movement, I'm not rigidly forcing it to do something, but I'm kind of allowing and listening into my body, giving my body the chance to inform me inform my mind so that the body mind is working together. I can be like, oh, like I can kind of circle around. I can find the breath. I can find the fluidity. I can find the flow. So that is just a small little morning think, feel, be about micro movement and hydration of fascia. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the thread or reach out to me. I also have Instagram, YouTube, and I teach sort of the Laban / a little bit of continuum stuff on there. So feel free to watch and follow, learn. Have a nice day.